Hello and welcome to the History Boys segment by Leroy 592. And today we're going to explore the Crusades, or rather, the criminal history of the Crusades. Now, this is a bit of a quickie, but we're going to explore the Crusades and the Holy Wars, and that they were in fact not so holy. So maybe some of you know of the Teutonic Knights who just went on to the Holy Land in Jerusalem to plunder riches in the name of God, or rather under the pretense of the name of God. But do you know that some of them were actually thought of as criminals? That they set up penal colonies, not unlike Australia in the 1700s and the 1800s, where most of the Crusaders were Englishmen who were tried for murder. Probably not just Englishmen, but those seeking to just redeem themselves, or just condemned to the Middle East, and were sent into the Crusades, which is, of course, thought of as a centuries-long war, and probably most of them were criminals. Either they were legit murderers, or they were tried. Didn't really matter. But they were sent into the war, and to either just be sent there to be executed by, by proxy, through war, because, well, casualties in the battlefield, it didn't really matter. Soldier was a soldier, and dying in a battlefield was just, that was it. But of course, it makes you think of how much of the self-serving attitude even back then, even 800 to 500 years ago, that people just dressed it up as a noble cause of serving the Lord, as it were. But most of them just plundered riches, wanted to go somewhere else, or were sent over there, condemned as criminals. So, of course, this is a bit of a early hours recording, being a bit of the booze, but yeah, probably not as much as the Crusaders. Certainly not the Teutonic Knights. They just wanted to get rich, drunk, go to other lands, etc. And in a sense, like I said, the some part of the Holy Wars was a front for penal colonies, where they would just send all sorts of blokes, bad blokes, to the to Jerusalem to fight in the Crusades. And they varied. Yeah, they were legit murderers, or just accused of murder, or they were soldiers that wanted to prove themselves, who really, and also really, believed in their cause. But nevertheless, there was a myriad, slight in brackets, variation of guys who just wanted to, who were just there mingling, and whether or not the some of them believe that Christianity was superior to Saladin's Islam cause or whatever. Some of them just were there because they didn't have a choice, and some of them were there just because they wanted to do something. They wanted to plunder riches or just fight or all of that. So makes you really think of people's attitudes towards things, experiences, what people went through. Yeah. I guess some things were as, I guess, slightly romantic as Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven, but an epic and all that. But there were some guys who just did as they pleased and paid for it, and then they went somewhere else, and they tried to do the same again under the threat of death because they didn't care. And maybe they thought, if I'm going to die anyway, I'll either meet Satan or the Father up in heaven. Or maybe just people just didn't care because they just wanted to do what they wanted. They were in a new land and thought maybe if they were going to die anyway at some point, they might as well just live it up. So it really puts you in the perspective of, did they really do it for a religious cause, a lot of these crusaders, or did they just use the experience as they were somewhere else and they wanted to do something. So maybe I was rambling a bit, but because of the alcohol. Yeah. Happy Christmas, Happy New Year, all that shit. Maybe blot that out. Maybe bleep that out at some point. But just to conclude this episode of History Boys Bad Blokes. A lot of them were bad blokes. This is why I'm including this in this series, because there were, of course, like I said, reports of crusaders who were most likely, a lot of them, that were condemned, sent over there into the holy wars in the Middle East, in Jerusalem, present day Israel, blah blah blah. Were just bad blokes who may or may not have murdered people or been charged. Sometimes that didn't make a difference. So that concludes Lira 592's History Boys Bad Blokes. And I'll swear I'll get better at these. Bit of a rocky. Yeah. Seeing as this is my second recording as a whole so far. So that concludes History Boy Bad Blokes. And I'll be sure to upload my second History Boys Bad Blokes episode 2 at some point in the near future. Good night. God bless. Hey up, my old chums. I suppose old by now. I suppose I get that distinction. Get to use that distinction. But without any further ado, this is episode 3 of yet another instalment of History Boys Bad Blokes. Today I'm going to be discussing the very lesser known Victorian. Well, yeah, I suppose Victorian. Some in the 1830s, anyway. Don't know if they class that as Victorian, but anyway, we're going to be focusing on two people in this episode because they're part of, well, an association, a kind of unit, so to speak. And we're going to be focusing on the Blanc brothers, Francois and Joseph, who were regarded as technically the first cyber criminals in the world, despite the fact that this was in the 19th century. But weirder things have been discovered and happened, like the Ankathera mechanism, a supercomputer from ancient Greece. No one knows how that worked, but it was very advanced. It was at least a ship's compass. But anyway, back to the Blanc brothers. There isn't all that much on Joseph. He's often or always paired with his brother, Francois, who was a banker, if I recall correctly. Just an all-round savvy businessman, and may have been the inspiration behind the old show tune, The Man That Broke the Bank of Monte Carlo, a notorious, well-known bank in Monaco, of course, where all the absolutely immensely, ridiculously French people, any people that have a crap load of money and are born into privilege, or work their way up into privilege, and vice versa. Like, of course, Prince Renier and actress Grace Kelly, who got away from Hollywood to marry him. But anyway, the Francois brothers were active in casinos, con people in casinos, managed to, through, I guess, technological devices, pull one over on people. And their exploits were known in 1834 and most probably onwards to French newspapers, who were astounded of how advanced their schemes were. And yeah, like I said, Francois specifically was possibly the inspiration for, of course, the Bank of Monte Carlo song that was used in 1962's Lawrence of Arabia, where Peter O'Toole / Lawrence sings it while riding on horseback through a desert and letting his voice echo throughout the off the cliffs. And that song is also mentioned in Alien Covenant, Michael Fassbender's David 8, who was very much inspired himself off Peter O'Toole, specifically the T.A.E. Lawrence role, where in a previous film, Prometheus, he would quote other lines from that film, which I'm not going to go into because blah blah blah, can't be asked. um, not really much to say anything else about the Blanc brothers, other than their schemes were very fascinating to me because, so they were especially fascinating to people around in their time, but especially fascinating to me because, I mean, who ever heard of a 1800s cyber criminal? Really? Anyway, I hope I explained that quite well. Of course, you can always look it up. The Blanc brothers, as in like Mott LeBlanc, minus the le, and like Mel Blanc, the man of a thousand voices, Looney Tunes. But yeah, should all be capable of spelling that name, basically Blanc without a K but with a C. But to end my rambling there, that concludes episode 3 of History Boys Bad Blokes, and I look forward to your views and your comments. So, Leroy, signing off. Hello, and welcome to another instalment of History Boys Bad Blokes. This is episode 4, and we're focusing on the real life, I suppose, James Moriarty, aka the nemesis of Sherlock Holmes, Adam Worth, the professional Victorian art thief, just thief in general, and conman. Now, Worth was born in 1844 in Germany to Jewish parents, and his original name, surname, was Werth, spelled Werth. And at a young age, he was brought up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and at some point in his adult life, he travelled the world, perfecting his craft of pulling one over on people. Travelling all across the world, across Africa, parts of Europe, and he even managed to become a high-ranking member of British society, which gained him the attention of Scotland Yard. And for years and years and years, they were on his trail. They actually got caught for one crime, which was stealing a piece of artwork by Thomas Gainsborough in 1876 called Princess Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, I believe. And as I said, as the guy investigating his case was the inspiration behind Sherlock Holmes, Werth was the inspiration behind James Moriarty. Conan Doyle was, of course, somewhat of a amateur detective, and also, fun fact, Conan Doyle based Dr. Watson heavily on himself, as he was a war medic in either Crimea or Afghanistan sometime in the 1850s or 60s or something like that. But yeah, Wirth was the inspiration behind the devious Moriarty, who was Irish instead of German, American, Englishman, I suppose. Yeah, sorry for the hesitation. I'm just doing this in my bath for a change. Yeah, change of scenery, I suppose. It's a bit lighter in here for some reason. I don't know what it is with this camera. But yeah. I suppose that's all there is to say about Adam Wirth, and I hope I didn't lose your interest, viewers. But I suppose I am still sort of new to the game, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, so stay tuned for another episode of either History Boys or Astute and Stalwart ones, whichever. And this is History Boy signing off. Hello, and welcome to the one you've all been waiting for, given by the trailer, well, the amount of views on my trailer for episode 4 of Bad Blokes by History Boy, and today we're looking at the Thief Taker General, Jonathan Wild. He was loved as a vigilante type in London's criminal underworld. And well, despite being known in London, he was actually from Wolverhampton, which is obviously the Midlands, and I haven't read that much about him, but there is a book by Henry Fielding that looks into the life of this interesting character, and it's called The Life and Death of the Great Jonathan Wild, which is a satirical look at his life, which means either there's some half-truths in there for humour or simply the way he writes it. So, yeah, he was the kind of guy who inspired the likes of probably Dick Turpin and others highwaymen, those were actually more baddie-like, I suppose, for lack of better words. But he was born in 1683 and died, well, pretty much exactly 300 years ago, in 1725, where he was executed at the Old Bailey. But the interesting thing about his death is, and, well, sad really, he tried to overdose on laudanum. Didn't even know they had that back then, but looks like they did. But prior to that, he actually starved himself, which actually made his death more painful. But fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, he ended up in a coma right up until the moment he was hanged. So it makes you wonder if he ever woke up. Maybe he woke up as he actually dropped. Who knows? It's morbidly fascinating to look into, to think about. So yeah, not much else to say about Jonathan Wild, the Great Thief Taker General. But, and that concludes episode 4 of Bad Blokes. That's his History Boy signing off.